Hello, happy Wednesday and happy Soulibration Day. Wednesdays are my favorite day. I don't know about y'all, but my name is Shameika Rhymes. And again, welcome to Soulibration here on blackdoctor.org. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And also, I'm curious, how many of you are currently on dating apps and dating websites? Or if you've tried it before, let me know that too in the comments. So, today we're talking about how dating has really gone digital over the past few years from sites from Facebook Dating, Tinder, Hinge, OkCupid, Bumble, and half of them I don't even know the names of. But how safe are they? How well do you know the person that you've been dating and or chatting with, not dating yet, but chatting with, and then you decide to meet up in person? Because I know some of you have probably seen in the news there have been a few people that have been killed after meeting someone on a dating app and then meeting up in person. So tonight we're going to get some tips to help protect you before you swipe left or right, but make sure you put your questions and comments in the chat and we'll try to answer them throughout the show. So tonight, I'm excited because Kim Jones, love and relationship coach, is here. She's got over 2 decades of experience in coaching, leadership, and personal development. She's got an extensive background in business psychology, law, real estate, and she's the creator of Heart Leadership. But I also love that she's the founder and CEO of Covelux Corporation, which is a website that focuses on more intentional dating for African American women. Welcome, Kim. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to meet you officially again.
Yes, yes. So, like I was saying, dating apps is kind of the norm these days because it seems that nobody wants to just take a chance and meet up in person. I think I'm still old school. Like, let's just bump into each other at the grocery store or something like that. But can you speak to any like national data or numbers that say that Black women are the least dated and the most single in the dating pool, and how it creates that foundation for how they're treated when it comes to dating?
Absolutely. And people don't go to the grocery store hardly anymore anyway, right? They're Instacarting or Amazoning or even in Whole Foods. So yeah, the dating statistics. So Pew is a great source. A lot of other sources where we're looking at Black women have been least dated and most single for decades, but the numbers are rising, not going down. So we're at 73% of marriageable Black women who are single, and many have never been married. So
Mhm.
the numbers are significant. Black men they're actually significantly behind that. So by several percentage points.
Why would that? Well, would that just be because some Black men are dating outside their race? Is that probably what that
Right.
means?
So yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of indicators and a lot of statistics. Some of the statistics are related to things that are, I think, obvious, but some of it is that Black women are archetyped and stereotyped and fetishized. There's also a heightened awareness and then safety. So like the statistics and numbers around women generally being concerned about safety in dating is
Mhm.
also higher. Right. So women are generally more concerned, and not to say that men wouldn't be concerned, but for a variety of obvious reasons, like usually the safety is more of a challenge to address and combat literally for women. So that it ends up being a safety issue that sometimes Black women just don't go into the dating space. So I was recently talking about that people are just like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Mhm. What do you think? I mean, is it just because of that, the safety thing and just it seems like, and I don't know if social media plays a part in that too, where it's just exhausting with well, this person better have this, and this. And if they blink at me twice, they're not the one. Stuff like that. Like, they come up with these lists.
People do have lists, right? So people have lists, people have general concerns. People are afraid to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
right? People are afraid to be vulnerable. In this day and age, you can find yourself in a situation where vulnerability creates a ghosting situation real quick on social media, like really fast,
Mhm.
or canceling, or just people putting your business in the streets in a way that's like, I didn't know this was going to become a public issue because I'm telling you something that's deeply private. And dating and love is deeply private. So the vulnerability and the concern, and people not feeling afraid of just putting people's private information out in a public view makes people very weary of going. The other things that are starting to crop their head just quickly have to do with the AI space, or just generally, like, think about, you send a picture, where does it go? Who's getting it? Things of that.
Right.
And I can attest to getting tons and tons of pictures that I did not ask for and did not welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And that border on something that's harassment, but the pressure, the peer pressure to,
Hmm.
to do to do that, to send pictures so that you're staying in the conversation, can be difficult for people to say no to.
What is that about those pictures? Because like they're unsolicited, and it's like I guess both men and women think that it's going to prove their worth, maybe, but it's more like at a certain point, and I don't know if it's an age thing, but it's cringy, I think.
Oh, it's not even a little cringy. It's like so cringy. It's so gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sure you're on social media. I spend Wednesdays in social media, like that, for my business, for the company. We spend the day in social media. We trade information back and forth and discuss it. And I mean, there are some websites where it's like, fans only, or only fans or whatever, like for
Oh,
free,
yeah.
for free. It's for free.
Oh,
And yeah, I mean, you can see a lot of things moving around. You can see a lot of things. Twitter has become a place where you can see things that are, used to be filtered a bit more, and
right.
the filters are off. And so it's almost like, where I'm not that old, but I'm old enough where it used to be like, oh, what did they just do on public television? And now it's like that is not it, and so it's ratcheting up the sort of, need in some
Hmm.
people's mind,
Yeah.
to negotiate the terms of their values, which can be a
Mhm.
challenge. Again, we go through all of that. Coblux is holistic, so we go through that with people, like, maintain your values and how to do that, um,
Mhm.
and really, acquire a sort of taste for your own healthy values, so that even when someone is trying to marginalize the value system you have, that you stand on your ground, stand on your business.
Okay. And everyone, make sure you drop your comments in the chat and join the conversation. I want to hear what you guys have to want to know about dating app safety. So, speaking of, let's talk about some general safety tips when it comes to online dating and using dating apps. What are some things that you can name to help those that may be thinking about venturing into it, and then some tips for those that are already like they've already got their profile set up and all the things.
Stay in the app. My number one thing would be to stay in the app. A lot of times, like, one of the first things that people do is jump out of the app. And
Hmm.
like, and somebody will send you a message, and then they'll say, here's my number. And you feel pressured right away to jump in with a private texting conversation off the app. Don't do that. Stay on the app. Stay on the app. I encourage people to stay on at least a week or 2 weeks. There is no reason to jump off the app. That is a great place, not to be not to be like forensic, but, for all of the communication to stay where it is. And so,
Hmm.
if anything occurs, that, again, with the pictures and all kinds of different other things that can occur in communication, that there is a record that you
Hmm.
don't have to address later. So stay in the app is one of the big things. Definitely, Covelux has a video, like, we have a patented video kind of space for people to have meetings, conversations, and, also just how people can meet in our platform. But try to do some video chatting. Um,
Hmm.
it's not as organic, right? So, I mean, I'm awkward on video. Look at me, I'm awkward. Awkward. It can be awkward on a date,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It can be awkward, and so you just acknowledge the elephant in the room and move forward. But definitely try to do something that's more of a safe space before you're jumping into, going on a date, physically going on a date. Make sure that there are no secrets. Let everybody know I'm going on a date. This is where I'm
Hmm.
going. I always text my mom or call her. I tell her exactly where I am. I share locations with her. She
Uh-huh.
knows what's going on all the time. And then there's a show called, like, Text Me When You Get Home, or something like that. And
Hmm.
I think that that's such a safe sort of at practice. We have Sure Date built into our process. So we actually have relationships with, spaces like restaurants and locations, so that everybody is aware that you're a client of Coflux. So they treat you different, you in a good way, and they you get beautiful white glove treatment, or and it just feels better. But also, if there's a challenge on the date, there are very discreet ways to address that. So I mean, come over to Koblenz because we take care of it for you. But if you are challenged around those kinds of things, it's really important for you to have not just a backup plan, but an actual just plan. Don't just assume that everything's going to be fine. I'm a professor too, and some of my students have described being on sites before Koblenz existed, where they would be a quid pro quo. They'd be like, well, this site, you can see where the person is and they can see where you are. And I'm like, danger, danger. So if at all possible, don't utilize a space like that either. People shouldn't be able to track where you are and what you're doing and where you're going. That's super, super, super dangerous. So be careful with that. Those are a lot of the sort of using all the safety features that are available. And then generally, like, we don't have swiping. Our company is not related to swiping. Surgeon General just came out with a warning around social media in general and the mental health challenges for social media. And swiping is such a mentally challenging space. You're literally swiping, like, no, think about what you do with swiping. Like, no.
Right. Yeah.
That is not how you treat people. It's like you're at the Toys R Us isn't even in town anymore, but like where you go and like, I like that doll. Oh, that doll is cuter. It's that kind of a feeling. And that's not the way that you should be treating the potential of a relationship. So if at all possible, come over to a place like Koblenz, or certainly have a matching opportunity where that is not the climate, because that is not a relationship climate.
Okay. Now, well, speaking of that, because some of these like dating sites, people think of them as what is the phrase they say? The young people say hookup culture. They think of it as that. So in that vein, what would you say like your advice would be if that person knows this? I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm just trying to have fun. Would the same advice still exist, or is there other advice?
Well, all day, but yeah, all day. But also, honestly, people have a right to. My dissertation is about self-determination. Self-determination, super important. I live by that. You have a right to live by your own standards, right? And other people can't make a decision on those standards unless they're illegal or socially inappropriate, or they just don't agree to them. And the agreement is where we really have the space to communicate around this. When people have a dating agreement, even if you're not dating like officially, there should be an agreement of terms of how it's going to go, and people should stand by that. So I often encourage people to have agreements. If you have a situationship, that's your business. But you have to have an agreement on what you're doing. That's the main problem, and stand by it. If people start going off the terms of the agreement, I'm a lawyer, so I can't help myself, but
right.
that's okay. That's what everything is. Everything is a covenant, right? Which is an agreement. So if you're going to agree to do this, that, and that, the other thing, whatever that looks like, then that it needs to stay that way, or there has to be a new agreement. And that's really what it needs to be, where people are agreeing to it. There's consent.
Gotcha. Because I think, and I've heard stories before where, people get on these sites just to have fun. Meanwhile, they're targeting the people that are looking for a relationship and trying to convince them like, we can just have fun. So I think that's very important to have communication and like you said, that agreement of this is what this is. Or if that person doesn't want to do that, then they need to express like, this is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the one, or whatever it is. But yeah. So so we talked a little bit about, the features that your site has, but how can users verify the authenticity of who they are talking to on these dating apps, like all dating apps? Because, you could I've seen people put up profile pictures, or they'll post on social and say, this is not me, but it's like a picture of them. They're like, this is not me. I'm happily married, or whatever. They're just using my picture.
Yes. The catfish phenomenon.
Yes.
You can't perfectly address it unless you have somebody actually verifying, right? The sites have some verification, depending on the site, right? There's different levels of verification. In building Koblox, I do a lot of research. Like my background is in all kinds of things, including anthropology. So I like do actual deep dive, like I'm in it. And every couple months, like I sign back up on other sites so that I can have the experience, see what's going on. So at the end of the day, it's very difficult to verify. Some of the sites will verify through your cell phone, for example. That is not a verification. That is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Like you can hand somebody your phone and be like, now we're gonna really get into it.
Right.
That's not good. And some of them use some of the technology that we do. That I'm aware, because we again have patents around our technology. There is no other site that has a technology that we do and
Mhm.
and verifies at the level that we do. We have some FBI check level and international check level, but you would never know it because it's so slick and it's so nice that it just feels like, oh, I'm just doing this. And then all of a sudden we've done a really deep back dive into the background.
Mhm.
So if people really want to know like what's going on, they can find that out. So on a regular website, like there are some that do a little bit of like they'll do an ID check and stuff like that, but they're going cheap with it. So they'll just like, oh, it's that looks like that is you, whatever, or sit there and
Yeah.
do this a couple times and we'll
Yeah.
delete it, which I don't know if they do or not, but we definitely go deep so that there's no question. We will do also, you can a la carte certain kinds of things on ours. Like we will make sure that there's no kinds of some of the background checks that you really need to check if you have children, for example, and things of that nature, and that you should want to know anyway.
So for people that, if they're not on your site and they're on other sites, or they decide, okay, that I've matched with this person, I'm going to go meet them in person, but at first I need to Google them or whatever, like what steps would you suggest before they take it into like an in-person meeting to do that background check, or at least check for mug shots or whatever else they need to be checking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So more to your question, because I love Koblox, but if people,
Yes.
not everybody's going to get on Koblox. So the best way to sort of start the search, you can go on Facebook or social media and start what people call, I'm not going to use the language like of starts with an S ends with awking, but
Mhm.
you know, because I feel like that's violence, but
Yeah.
honestly, like there's a level of sort of searching for people. You absolutely can check addresses. You can ask for an address. So if you're thinking about really getting to know somebody deeper, yeah, absolutely. They can give you their telephone number. You just don't have to use it, but you can definitely look them up using their telephone number. You
Yeah.
can look them up on our local is CCAP, but whatever the local, have you been arrested and
Mhm.
for what? Like you said, I'm a real estate broker as well. So people want to see if there's sex offenders in their area. It's
Mhm.
a national federal site. And so check it out. Check it out. It's
Yeah.
like use your own resources, right? Like if they said they went to such and such a school, you can also find that, did this person do you know this person? Every town is small enough to get real information about people.
Right.
You say they work somewhere, like you don't have to drop by, but you can definitely find that would be so
Yeah, don't do that.
weird. But you can definitely do those kinds of deep dives. And the preferred thing, right, is that you're not serially dating.
Mhm.
You're not having to do that with lots and lots of people. And
Right.
but it's again, it's choose your own adventure, choose your own choice on that. But certainly you want to do some deep diving, and it's easy nowadays. It's easy.
Mhm. Yeah, like what do they always say? Like the Twitter investigators, everybody will find out anything like quickly. Just put it on there. Do y'all know? And somebody will find out.
Mhm. Well, I think the other way I found is just quickly. Again, in the spaces that I've been in, I've done a lot of like internal investigation kind of things. You can message with people that you have in common with somebody. And
Mm,
that's a really good way to like kind of get a sense. Like it's like getting a three star, 1 star, 5 star.
right.
We do ratings like that on Koblox too, but you can do that with people like, hey, girl, you know him? Where you know him from? Tell me a little bit more, and
Yeah.
get into a more collegial or friendly conversation so that it's not just like the cleansed or him or her, they, the cleansed pictures that you see, but like,
Hmm.
what are they really? What's the real? Yeah.
Right. Everybody, don't forget to drop your questions in the chat. Let us know, like if you have any questions, comments, Drop it in the chat. So when it comes to privacy, because some people like to overshare online, and you have to be, obviously you have to be careful because safety. But what personal info should users avoid sharing on their dating profiles, and what should they share?
Yeah. So on mine, I have some social, like I have some AI for my own, just because I don't want people to see where I live. I don't want to
Mhm.
see. So addresses, like don't put your address anywhere in pictures. People sometimes do that. And I'm like, I mean, it's so easy. Your name, you got first and last name, and then your address is up and we know what city you're in. What are you doing? So
Right.
that's a gimme. Where you're at. Right. So we've had a lot of situations in the media where a public figure, a celebrity's girlfriend or relationship person put up like exactly where they were at, and then somebody rolled up on them and shoot them.
Right.
That's that kind of situation. Like it's so avoidable. Don't do that. People don't
Mhm.
need to have a play by play of where you are at all times or before you go. So like you basically are letting everybody know where you're at or your constant routine. Like do it every Friday. Like,
Right.
don't do that either. Those kinds of things where you're constantly showing your routine.
Mhm.
Those are like sort of law enforcement kinds of efforts that I would tell people. But generally, that's a fact. Again, going back to like if you're using a dating app, don't use the kind where you're showing your location all the time. Don't share your location with somebody you don't really know. Meaning like, oh, we've been on a couple dates, so I just decided that I would use the location app with them so that it would be easier if we wanted to meet up so they know where I'm at and we can just meet up. Don't do that at all. That's so dangerous and
Mhm.
not a great idea.
Yeah, I didn't know people did that. But yeah, definitely not a great idea. Um, so what are some other ways that users can protect themselves, especially their privacy and personal data? Because I know a lot of people, especially for their birthday, they may put up their Cash App, or they may say, um, yeah, like I'm gonna be here and turning up on my birthday. Y'all should come out, like all those things. So, are there any others, that are some no nos?
Yeah, I think some of the other no-nos is just to be vigilant. Like
Hmm.
even when like as you're talking to somebody, one of the things that people just ignore is their gut feeling. Like, and that's one of the things that we just don't like. People are like, oh, don't do this and don't do that. Like, but also do that. Like,
Hmm.
lean into your gut feeling. If it just
Yeah.
feels weird, I mean, I'm not encouraging people to ghost, but you can ghost too. You can be like, hey, it was good. It was great. Or just like, it was good. It was great. End it.
Hmm.
Because there's no reason not to lean into that part. The part
Yeah.
that's like, this is not feeling right. Also, if they tell you that they know stuff that is not the case, right? If they're like, "Oh, I went there too," or "I was there at this time of that," and you're like, "I didn't see you," or "I'm not sure about that." Like, don't just keep going. Don't just keep
Right.
rolling. Those are some of the things that people ignore in the dating because they're really super safe. They like,
Hmm.
they don't park in a weird alleyway and things of that nature. I always tell people to drive yourself to the date. Don't ever
Hmm.
ride together. I feel like that's a no brainer, but and don't get intoxicated. I was in a sorority and we had a 2 drink like not minimum max.
Well, minimum's fine too.
Maximum for sure, and in certain social events if we were wearing our letters, right? So
Hmm.
I think on those terms, when I'm on a date, first date, listen, I'm wearing my letters. That's what I have in my mind. We don't need to be intoxicated because I need to be alert enough that and don't leave your drink alone and things of that nature, but really be alert enough that if you need to get an Uber because you can't drive, you're not like, oh yeah, you can drive me. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Get a ride
Okay.
or drive yourself.
Okay, we do have a question. Lynette McCallum wants to know, how do you handle running into people you know? And I
100%.
don't know if that means if you're on that first date or first meetup. I don't want to call it a date, but first meetup, or if it's, um, yeah, I'm assuming that's what that means. I'm not really sure.
Well, let's try it out. So, I usually say hi. So there's a couple different ways that I do that. I will just be like, "Oh, this is so and so. We're on a first date." I just call it out. I just say it. Sometimes I'll text them if we're far along in the date, or I'll go to the restroom and text them and be like, "First date. That's what's going on.
Oh,
so that I can kind of catch them before they roll up and ask a bunch of questions and be like,
yeah.
we'll catch up about this kind of thing. Um,
Okay.
on the app. Oh,
Okay. On the app. Okay.
okay. Yes. That is a great question. So a lot of times, so it depends. Like, so sometimes I've seen people that I know are more than in a situation. They're straight up married and
Hmm.
they're on the app. So that is awkward.
Yeah.
That's awkward. I will often send them a private and be like, hey, is this really you? Because of what we
Um,
just talked about.
yeah.
Is it really them? They may delete, remove, go away, things of that nature. Then it's done. But if they don't, that's what I do. I will actually reach out and be like, hey, is this so and so? Because
Mhm.
that has happened a couple times, and it does
Yeah.
be really awkward. If you're not interested in them, again, I don't do the swiping, but just like you can just ignore them and then there's
Mhm.
nothing one way or the other. Now, if they like you and you don't like them back, that can be really awkward too. So again, there's certain spaces like a Covlex, not to be like Covlex, but there are certain places where we'll deal with that for you. So
Oh.
yeah, we address those kinds of things, and because we have members that they're already members of, we'll just say like, when you get in, you can see like that it wouldn't happen because you would have to actually connect. But
Hmm.
if you wanted to, then we would address those kinds of additional challenges. Like, I already know this person.
Let's see. We have another question, and I'm blind as a bat. So, Lakeisha Morgan, do you recommend carrying some type of protection like mace on the first date, or are they vetted enough to where a person can feel comfortable? That's a good question.
Right. So, I mean, nothing's perfect. I encourage people to do whatever is comfortable for them and legal. Right.
Mhm.
I absolutely do. I'm not going to say like don't bring mace or don't bring whatever makes you feel comfortable and safe. I obviously, I guess what I would say is that first. Second, if you're not feeling safe, you may not be ready for the date yet.
Ooh,
Right.
yeah.
So we want to make sure that you're comfortable, because I think the number one thing that I have with our clients, our consumers, and specifically our Black women members is fear. They're
Mhm.
afraid because things have happened or they have heard enough stories that we're scared. And so um, I want to make sure that when you're going on a date, our team is generally very focused on making sure that you feel confident, comfortable, and secure and safe while you're
Mhm.
going on a date. So you certainly can. If that's what you feel comfortable with, yes. Don't, especially if it's something that you generally carry. Like, why would you take it out of your purse?
Yeah.
So
Well, that brings up a good question because, now that you've matched with someone, you've been talking and you take it offline, um, what are some red flags to be looking out for when you're communicating once you do take it offline, like, and they're trying to get you to meet up? What are some red flags?
right, constantly coming out of what your boundaries,
Hmm.
constantly just stepping on your boundaries, whatever that is. So you need to know your boundaries first, right? You need to know, like, I'm not taking pictures. If I've already told you I don't take pictures, private,
Right.
then don't keep on asking for that. That's
Hmm.
one of the number one things that happens on the site, just sexual pressure.
Yeah.
So stand your ground. Don't sway from that. Also, don't beat yourself up if you're like, well, I decided to kiss him on the first date and I changed my mind, whatever. You can
Yeah.
change your mind, but it's always good. Communication is really important. So it's always good to be like, you know what? I think I'm leaning towards that after all. If you're
Hmm.
Those are things that you can say. We're all adults. Like, go that direction rather than like sit
Yeah.
there waiting. Like, is he going to kiss me? Well, you already told him not to. You already told
Right.
him not to. So don't do that. Don't create like a mind reading space and then be like, I don't know why he didn't. He doesn't seem interested or she doesn't seem interested.
Yeah.
They're just following what would be what you already talked about. So I encourage like deep communication to the extent that
Mhm.
you're comfortable. And if you're not, then keep on exploring whether or not you need to be like on a date. Again, the drinking so that you can have an honest conversation is super important too.
Hmm.
Um, I think those are some of the things that I think you really want to focus on. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing that I've heard previously, just ear hustling, is that some people have gotten scammed on dating apps before because there it may be the guy or the woman is like, I need money for my son's laptop. It broke and I don't get paid till whatever day. Like it's something. So how can people, like, what are some other common scams and how can users identify them and protect themselves against that?
Right, don't do that ever. Don't send money, don't do anything like that. I think one of the things I encourage people to do is not carry cash
Mhm.
at all on a date. Just really not a good idea. And have an agreement about how really transactionally how it's going to be paid for so that you're not sitting there hoping, wondering, thinking what's going to happen next. You really want to make sure that, like, again, the pictures, sometimes people will use those as a scam. You can use people's pictures. This is super gross, but people can, don't worry, it's not super gross, but people can, if you take a picture, anything can be turned into AI, and
Oh, yeah.
your voice can be changed into AI, and you can be putting that together and make it you.
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, I have the technology to do some of that stuff of it at my fingertips, and it's not hard to get. So
Wow.
I would never do that. Like, trust me, that's gross. But as far as like trying, like, making something look very real
Hmm.
and putting someone else's face on it, you can do that so quickly and so easily. So don't provide things that can then be monetized or
Hmm.
used as leverage for forcing you to pay to get it back. Once it's made, you can't get it back anyway. So
Yeah.
don't do it in the first place. That's one of the bigger things. Um, I think just making sure that you're with somebody that is legitimately somebody that you would see as somebody you would want to be with and around.
Hmm.
Again, trusting your gut, because a lot of times that's the thing that will tell you, like, I should have never, that's what I hear people say all the time. I should have never even been out with him, and then they'll like go through a whole
Yeah.
list. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And then they did it anyway. It's too late.
So just hypothetically, say they end up getting scammed
Yeah.
or lured into an unsafe situation. What can they do?
Okay, so I've already talked a lot about Koblenz. You need to speak up right now, right? Like, so
Mhm.
if you're in a dating situation, like I have been in situations where I just have to say, like, hey, you know what? This has been great, but I do have something else that I need to get to, which is true, out of here, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I have something else that I need to get to, and I have to. I'm gonna have to cut this short. But it was a thing. It was a whole situation. Thank you, and move forward.
Mhm.
You don't have to cause a scene. You can stay in your space of decorum and elegance, but also move forward and move out of the situation if it's just not what it needs to be. If you really are scammed, like somebody stole or stole from you in any way, shape, or form, so spiritually, physically, emotionally, in
Mhm.
a way that is illegal, contact the authorities. Don't sit there and be like, well, I don't know, it wasn't that big of a deal. It totally is a big deal. And that's
Mhm.
the thing. Like, I am in Milwaukee right now. We recently had a young woman who and I'm going to circle back to one more thing, but she was killed on a first
Mhm.
date from a dating app. And
Mhm.
people kind of knew of the person, but they all said that he was weird. So it's like, oh man, like what? Why? So trust your gut. Don't go through that kind of iteration,
Mhm.
and make sure that you have somebody that you can contact. Just
Mhm.
be really frank with it. Get up and go to the bathroom. Stand outside, pretend you smoke. I don't know. Just get out of there because your life is way more important than saving face or not looking
Right.
bad. You just get out of there. Don't stay.
Mhm. Yeah, and that brings another point to mind about how sometimes, a lot of times, people think first date, oh, come to my house. First date,
Thank you.
let's just Netflix and chill or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What advice about that? Because sometimes maybe the person thinks like, well, this might be my only chance of love or my only chance at this is the only one I've matched with so far, and I've been on this app for however long. Should I go over there? I mean, I would say no, but you're the expert.
So would I. Yeah, absolutely no. First of all, there's billions of people on the planet. I just gave the percentages of Black women that are available. And
Yeah.
like I said, the number of Black men is close. And also, single people in general, there's lots.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things that I think I always encourage people once we get into a space where I can talk with them is you weren't failing in dating. It's just like anything else. Like you learn to do stuff, and this isn't something
Mhm.
that you learn to do. You don't have like expert knowledge of dating. You've just been out there dating, you know? So like it's like going in I play tennis, but if I was like, I play tennis, but like I never learned, I was just hitting the ball all over the place, you know. And I just
Right.
kept going. Like, I mean, you're gonna develop some skills, but you're not gonna be at the skill level. I'm never
Mhm.
gonna be the skill level for Serena Williams or Venus Williams, but I at least know the game and I
Yeah.
understand the structure and the process. Like one of the things that in law or any other space that I'm in, but specifically in love and dating, it's not that you don't know how to do it. It's really that you're trying to navigate the systems that you're in so that
Mm.
you can do it in a flow in a system that is comfortable for you. And so that's really what it's about. It's not because you're failing at it. It's not that. It's like learning how to negotiate this space. It's
Mhm.
ever changing, it's ever flowing, just like everything else. It moves at a quick pace that you need somebody to kind of help you and guide you through.
That's great. That's great. Y'all, we got about less than 10 minutes. So if you have your questions, drop them in the chat. And I'm just curious, just because there's a TV show kind of similar to this, but I don't want to put the name out there. But basically, these people met online
Mm.
or on a dating app or website, and they've been dating for years, like online. They haven't met in person. So, what advice do you have for people like that? Because say they live in different countries or even across, one's on the West Coast, one's on the East Coast, or whatever the issue is. I mean, I think even they're in the same city and still didn't see each other. But what advice do you have for that? Like, and how do you maintain a relationship like that? And what safety or red flag should you be looking for with that?
Ooh, yeah. So okay. So let me take a step back and say we're self-determination, right? So everybody has a right to the agreement, contract, or
Yes.
covenant that they want to have in a relationship.
Hmm.
If that's the way you roll and that's what you're doing. And we do have a couple of people that I would say are kind of like celebrity kind of status.
Hmm.
So generally we work with people who are looking for a long term or a situation where there's an agreement for um, a relationship. But sometimes people their busyness, the busyness of
Yeah.
their schedule makes it a little more difficult. So just to answer, sort of that, I'm laying foundation for that to say, sometimes people have situations where it doesn't make certain kinds of things don't make sense.
Hmm.
It's fine. That's fine. It's just learning how to have a conversation so the agreement is really there. So if you're like, hey, I want a situationship, I mean, what does that mean? That is a
Right.
broad area. So situationship can mean like a hookup or whatever. But
Hmm.
what's the whatever? What's that gray area? So that
Right.
people aren't finding themselves and are like, I didn't agree to that. That's not what we were talking about. I didn't think that's what we were talking about. Like that kind of thing shouldn't be going on. So um, as far as long distance relationships, I mean, there are military people and lots of different other situations where that's the case. I'm aware of a lot of people that have those kinds of things going on, and people that have approached us are like, I'm in Liberia and this person is in UK. What do you
Yeah.
think? I'm like, what do you think? Right?
Yeah.
How will you sustain that? Because love is one of those things where the heart does grow fonder, but it also
Hmm.
feels weary, as you said, and
Yeah.
it can get broken on little things, especially if you aren't in agreement and there's not a true agreement. Some people can make that work. It comes down to like whether or not you have other supports and other things in place, right?
Hmm.
So if you still have lots of other things going on and you're sharing ship, like you do lots of videos or whatever it is you do, but you need to maintain that relationship, not just try to wing it. The
Right.
winging it part is where things fall apart, right? Because you're
Hmm.
like, well, I haven't heard from so and such and such a time, so I guess we can do hookups now, and that's not what was agreed upon at all. That
Right.
that can erode the relationship pretty quickly. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So how can you mentioned mental health earlier, but I'm just curious because it can weigh on your mental health to be on these apps and you're dating and going out on dates. And you're like, this ain't gonna work. This one isn't the one. This one isn't it. How can you protect your mental health? What can you do?
Yeah, I think this is where I would say don't go to social media. Kind of
Mhm.
always mentioned, like social media is so interesting. Everybody's an expert. Everybody has all these expert ideas, and everybody has
Yes.
a camera, and everybody has a microphone. A lot of people have a microphone. I have a microphone. And so all of a sudden you find yourself in a space where people are like, girl, close the door, or silence
Right.
is therapy. And I'm like, no, silence is like rude. And
Yeah.
it's not actually, and that's not the way to manage like adult situations. So unless you're feeling like there might be violence, and then let's address that a different way. So
Mhm.
we have to find different ways to have outlets.
Mhm.
One of the things that I'm always encouraging people to engage in whatever level of self-help that they can do, because again, self-determination is super important. So I think like examine audible books, or consider getting a journaling book. I do shadow work journaling with some people,
Yeah.
just to work on their inner child kinds of things. So if you can't afford a therapist, therapy is not super expensive. But if you're like, I can't afford it because I don't have time, whatever excuse you want to make. Really, whether it's like legit, or because you have other things that you're concerned with as it relates to like approaching that, find something that resonates with you,
Mhm.
that really resonates with you, and then engage in self-awareness, self-care. Self-awareness is the number one thing that I encourage people. Don't just be like, well, it was them and they did that and I think that, and I have all these, like you said before, criteria, and you didn't meet it, and like that's tough,
Mhm.
because you don't
Right.
meet it. Like I can't be all the things on my list.
Right.
I wake up with crazy, like, well, I don't, I wrap my hair, but like I still have to brush my teeth in the morning and get my eyebrows right and do things like that. So you
Yeah.
can't expect other people to show up in perfection when you're still working on yours too.
Ooh, yes. Oh, let's see. Lakeisha says, if a person's only way of communicating is text, is that a red flag?
Yes. That is not I can't like cosign, hard stamp. No, no, no. That is not communication. That is chatting, and
Mm,
that is a means to an end, usually for logistics. I usually tell people texting is really a logistics feature for a phone. Communication
mhm.
is talking to people.
Yes.
So if their whole thing is texting, absolutely, because then you're like, okay, are you really who you say you are? You
Mhm.
can ask a lot of questions, and it creates a lot of space for wonder, which ends up being a trust challenge, right? So,
Mhm.
yes, Lakeisha, thank you for asking that question. I can't believe I didn't cover it earlier. Constantly texting, always canceling meetings is also a concern. Like always having an excuse about their car breaking down. It can sometimes, but not all the time. I mean,
Mhm.
they seem to be getting to work or whatever, but they never seem to be able to get to your date. Things like,
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of stuff. Or my kids. A lot of times that ends up being like, I'm sorry, something came up with my kids. That could happen, and it could be happening.
Mhm.
You need to assess whether or not this is the right situation if it doesn't work for you.
Okay, we have another question. Any tips for someone who's shy, but they want to break into online dating?
Oh, I love that. So, um, online dating is for shy people. I think I think it's for shy people because again, like we do things with what we do, but in which really helps shy people because we really open up the shell of like what helps you with communication. What is a way that you communicate comfortably, but you can do that yourself too. You can look at like what makes me feel comfortable around other people, and what really doesn't, and put your stamp on that and be like, I never ever want to see people with doing this, and you can
Mhm.
even put that on your profile. One of the best ways to communicate your shyness is to be like, I struggle with this in communicating with people, but I want you to know that doesn't mean that, and whatever you
Mhm.
sometimes have gotten feedback with on your shyness, right? Because shy is beautiful, and shy people are usually very introspective, and there's a lot of value in
Yeah.
shy. It just means that you're thinking and you're considering your environment, and that's stunning. So it's not a bad thing. Just
Mhm.
market yourself, sell the feature of who you are, and that's a beautiful thing. If you need help with it, I'm happy to do that for free, of course. But it's really something that you can do with your profile to let people know, like this is the type of person I am. So don't expect something wild and crazy and super loud because it's not me.
I love that. Well, The last question that I ask everyone: what feeds your soul? Like what feeds Kim Jones' soul?
Love, love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today I was outside, nature too, but I was just thinking like God is love. And
Mm.
so it's inside you. And so God is always in you. It's in your soul. It's in who you are. And so what feeds me is love. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. How can people find you? If they do want to sign up or want your help with writing their profile or just need coaching on how to date.
Absolutely. I'm all over social media at covelux.com or info@covelux.com. Covelux is spelled COULUX.com. And so I mean, I'm available. You can find me at Kim Jones too.
Mhm.
And so that's an easy way too, although that name's pretty common. So it's like wah, wah. People are like, I can't find you. I'm like, yeah, I know, Kim Jones. So Coblex is easier. I monitor, our team is monitoring, but I am on there every day. So if you're looking for me specifically, just say, I'm looking for Kim Jones. Where's Kim Jones at? And you'll get me. Yeah, they'll put you to me.
All I can think of right now is what is the song? Mike Jones? Who? Like Mike Jones. Sorry. My ignore me, y'all. Kim, thank you so much for joining me today on Soulibration. It has been a great conversation. And for more information on dating and relationships, everybody head over to blackdoctor.org. And as for me, I will see you guys next Wednesday at the same time for a Soulibration, but we'll be discussing cosmetic gynecology and how it can help get your groove back. So, y'all want to tune in for that one. Have a soul filled rest of the week, y'all. See you next week.